Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayemi Maseches KEREISOS Daf Tes Vav. We are holding at the Mishnah on the bottom of Yudalet Amud Beis, around 10 lines from the bottom. So once again, an example of groupings of Isurim into the same circumstance, to the same unit, to the same person. So in this case we have mother-in-law. There's a pasuk which reads like this: Erbas isha ubita lo yisegala. Don't get involved with mother and daughter. Likewise, granddaughter as bas bana, daughter of her son, as bas bita, or daughter of her daughter, lo yisikach legala yiservas. So one may not pair up mother and daughter, mother and granddaughter. Sha'ara hina zimahi. It's unwanted by Hashem. Now suppose you have chamaisei, which means his mother-in-law, which happens to have other statuses as well. Very similar to yesterday's examples. How about chamaisei? He gets involved with mother-in-law. It could end up branching out into many isurim. Chayav alem shem chamaisei. He can be liable on account of her being his mother-in-law, and also many more, on account of her being his daughter-in-law, if it so happens to be. Now, if she wanted to marry this fellow's brother, let's call him Reuven. So Reuven's brother, Shimon, she's now Eishes Achev, his sister-in-law. And she goes on to marry his father's brother. Now she has another title of Eishes Achi Aviv, wife of his father's brother, which is also one of the arayos. She wanted to marry, and she can also happen to be the sister of his wife. She married a woman, for a total of 7 infractions within the same person. And likewise, so you can have this convergence of multiple isurim in chamaisei, as we mentioned, and likewise by Ema Chamiv, which is another example of arayos, the mother of Chamiv, of his father-in-law. She goes on to marry the sister, the uncle. She can be wearing all these hats, in which case interaction with her would trigger these multiple violations. Likewise, if she happens to be the mother of his mother-in-law, and goes on to marry the brother and the uncle, she can have all these various liabilities. Now suppose we have in the same person the status of mother-in-law, mother of mother-in-law, and mother of father-in-law. Now how is that to happen? So let's say this fellow Reuven married 3 women. So we have the grandmother on top. He married her daughter, so now she's the mother-in-law. It's chamaisei. This chamaisei also happened to have another daughter who had another daughter. So Reuven married that person as well. So now this grandmother is the mother of his mother-in-law. Now this grandmother had another son who had a daughter, and this Reuven married that daughter as well. So he married 3 in total. So now the grandmother is the mother of his father-in-law. So suppose you have chamaisei, mother-in-law, Aim chamaisei, mother of mother-in-law, and Aim chaviv, mother of father-in-law, within the same person, who's wearing all 3 hats. Does he have that triple liability? You would tend to say yes, but perhaps here it's different. You know why? Because here it's all rooted in the same pasuk as we read before. It's all in the same lav, right? So perhaps you can't split it. You can't divide it into 3 separate liabilities, 3 separate punishments, 3 separate karbanos. Hence the machlekes. Rabbi Yochanan says yes. Omer habo al chamaisei. There could be an instance where he gets involved with mother-in-law, who happens to also be mother of his mother-in-law and mother of his father-in-law. Chayiv alem shem chamaisei, b'chayiv on her on account of chamaisei, ve'em chamaisei, mother of mother-in-law, ve'em chaviv, and mother of father-in-law. 3 separate, distinct isurim, despite being rooted in the same pasuk. Amrulei Chacham responded, no, shloshtan shem echad hein, they're all one and the same isur. Rashi on the bottom line explains why this is different than the previous circumstances where we do divide and split and add. Here it's different, says Rashi. B'chad krok sivi, b'chad lav. It's one violation, it's one transgression, it's one pasuk. You can't divide the chatois as well. But Rabbi Yechim Nuri disagrees. Fact is, 3 separate statuses, she's wearing different hats, and therefore 3 separate liabilities. Now, interestingly, we find a similar discussion regarding a different matter altogether. We know that one may not shecht oisoi vesbenoi, the mother animal, with its daughter, with its offspring, on the same day. And there too, we can have a convergence of several elements, several variations of this one halacha, this one isser, grouping together into the same animal. So for instance, you have the grandmother animal with her daughter. So let's give it numbers. You have 1, 2, 3. So let's say he shechted the grandmother, number 1. So far so good. Then he shechted number 3, the granddaughter. So far so good. There's no isser to the grandmother and granddaughter. And then he goes ahead and shechts the middle generation, number 2, the daughter. So in effect, he committed a double violation. It now triggers 2 separate isurim. Because let's think, number 2 is the daughter of 1. Right? So now, he completed the sequence of Oisei Vesbenoi. And number 2 is the mother of 3. So now he did the mother of number 3. So number 2 wears 2 hats. She's daughter of 1 and mother of 3. 2 separate variations of Oisei Vesbenoi, but converging on the same animal. So what happens to that shchita? Does it trigger a double violation or not? And Sumchus says it does. It would seem that he's in line with Rabbi Yechim Nuri in our Mishnah. You can branch off despite the fact that it's one single isser based on the same pasuk. Each variation triggers its own liability. So the Gemara will compare the two. Amar Belazar, Amar Beishia. You should know that Rabbi Yechim Nuri in our Mishnah divides and separates, even when they're rooted in the same pasuk. With Sumchus, who does the same by Oisei Vesbenoi, they're both on the same track. Rabbi Yechim Nuri, as we just explained, Sumchus Mai. Where do we find Sumchus? It's not. We turn to the next one. Shachta is Bas Pita. He shechted the grandmother animal. Let's call her number 1. His Bas Pita and her daughter's daughter number 3. Then he shechted number 2 right in the middle. Seifig is Arbaim. He gets 40 lashes. It's one violation. That's Tanakam. Sumchus Aimer, double violation. Meir, he quotes from Meir that it's right for 2 whippings. Seifig Shemoni gets 80. Why? The fact that it's one shchita, one animal, but she's wearing 2 hats. Amar Rava, in classic Gemara fashion, no. Who says to compare the two? There's room for distinction. Close, but not close enough. Amar Rava. Dumaloi, perhaps it's not so. We can find elements of distinction between the 2 stories. And kan like Amar Rabbi Yechim Nuri, perhaps it's only over here by the mother-in-law story. Rabbi Yechim Nuri divides and separates. And the fact is they're different names. They're wearing different hats. There's one erva called mother-in-law. One called mother of mother-in-law. Mother and father. 3 separate labels. And that allows for distinction and separation. But over there by the animals, and they're basically 2 variations of the same Oisei Vesbenoi. They're not different labels. Perhaps over there, we do not differentiate. And go the other way too. Maybe it's only there by the Esbenei that Sumchus says we treat it as a double violation. The Gufan Muchlach, and the fact is, what's forbidding him from shechting the middle generation? There are 2 separate causations, 2 separate reasons. One is because she's a daughter of number 1, and one is because she's a mother of number 3. So number 1 is causing one element of Isser, so is number 3. 2 separate triggers. But over here, you don't have 2 separate bodies triggering 2 separate. Why? We'll see in a minute. Perhaps he calls like a Rav Yechanan. The Rav Yechanan at the pasuk will group it together. So despite the fact that you can somehow separate and divide, the fact that the pasuk ties it all together, it's one and the same element of Isser, Sheira, Heina, Zimahia, Kosav, Asan, the Kulan. The Torah treats all different variations of this mother and daughter. Isser, Zima Achas, one element of Znus, and hence it only triggers one single consequence. Okay, so in a nutshell, we have various types of arais converging together in the same person. We all agree it triggers separate liabilities. But regarding the pasuk of Isha Ubita, which also covers Bas Bina and Bas Bita. So basically, you have one Isha wearing all these hats, mother-in-law, Aim Chamois. What happens there? According to Recham Nuri, triggers separate violations, separate consequences. According to Hanakama, it's rooted in the same pasuk and only triggers one consequence. The Gemara sought to compare it to the Yosef Benoi, where as well some holds, despite only being one act of shechita, can trigger multiple consequences. The Gemara finds distinction. You can say that here it's better because here there's three separate names which you don't have by the animals. On the other hand, here it's maybe worse. The pasuk groups it together. Amar Rav Akiva, says the Mishnah, Rav Akiva was in the company of a great man out in the marketplace. He met Sha'alti Ram Gamliel. I once met and I asked Ram Gamliel, Bes Rabbi Yeshua, where will they be itlis in the marketplace? The meat market of the town Imam. What are they doing there? They're going to buy some meat. They want to buy a behema to celebrate the wedding of Ram Gamliel's son. Perhaps that's the same wedding that they were coming back from in the Mishnah and Brachas over there, right? Ram Gamliel's sons were returning late at night after the mitzvah tans based on Mishnah. Maybe it was this wedding. So what was the question he posed to them? Interestingly, the Tosfos on bottom says, what's the point of mentioning the context, the setting? He says, Loidia Shvachan, 2 lines from the bottom, Loidia Shvachan, to highlight their greatness. Busy, standing on line, buying meat. What were they talking about? Not the weather, not politics. The deepest discussions, the most hardest sugis and shas, as KEREISOS. So you see, on the one hand, they were human, they went out to buy that, do what we do. But they maximized their time. Beautiful. In any case, what was his question? He says, I asked him like this. A fellow gets involved with his sister, who happens to be also sister of his father, also sister of his mother. Now, in the Hava minute, the Gemara will figure that three separate people. The Gemara later will change that really it's all one and the same person wearing three hats. Ma, what's his status? 3 chiyuvim or 1? Ma, chayiv achas al kulan, chayiv 1 for all. So 1 carbon takes care of it. Or chayiv al achas v'achas, or perhaps 1 carbon per. It says, we don't know this halacha. We haven't heard this halacha from our Rebbe. But we do know the following. Habal ein noshav nida is be'elam achas. Let's say a fellow gets involved with his 5 wives. So 5 separate people who are experiencing nida. So shall we say, the fact that it's all one isser, 1 chatas? No. Shu chayiv al kachas v'achas is chayiv, and each one separately. Why? Because they're separate people. We presume, it appears to us, here's your answer. Based on this, you can draw a kavachayim. Look, if 5 bodies can separate and divide the isser, certainly in your case, where it's 3 separate types of isser, 3 shemois, of course, it's 3 separate liabilities. So according to them, the label, the name, is more distinct even than separate people. If separate people can separate it, of course, the labeling is a dividing factor. Now, let's just clarify what was going on. What was his question? Is it as we read on the surface that it's 3 separate people, achoisoi and achoisov and achoisov? So what's the question? 3 separate labels? 3 separate people, of course, 3 separate karbanos. What's his question? Harishemos mochlakin. Different names, different people. Of course, there's no way to combine it and unite it. It must be that he's talking about the same person. There's sister who happens to also be father, sister, and mother, sister. So we're going to see how that works out. That was his question. In terms of the person, it's the same. In terms of the labels, it's separate. What's the deciding factor? Chayiv achas al kulam, is a chayiv one for all, because it's one person, or chayiv achas v'achas, or chayiv one per label, per isser. Ma, what's the halacha? Mi avin shawa seri shemos muchlok, and the names are different. Do we look at the names? Or dilma, or harei engov muchlok. The people aren't separate. Amaloi, they responded. Lo shamanu, we're not sure. Aval shamanu, we do know the following. Habal hinoshav nidus vas achas, by the 5 women that are nida. Shu shem echad, despite being one name, one isser. Shu chayiv al kol achas v'achas is chayiv on each one separately mishum nida. V'reinu, we presume shadvam kavachaymer. Certainly in your case, where it's separate names. Certainly when it's, if we find that when it's 5 women, despite being the same type, the same isser, nevertheless chayav is chayav on each one separate. Certainly when there are 3 separate isurim, which is a greater element of division. Shein Gimel Shem is the 3 separate names, and then of course, Shechayiv on each one separate l'kachas v'achas. Oh, so the Gemara Malikul Mifrach. Who says names are a heavier factor than the people factor? Taisa says they held that Shemesh is the overriding factor. But it's not so simple. In Mifrach you can say, well, maybe the fact that they're separate people, that makes it distinct. Malay Nida is they're separate people. Rather, we have a pasuk that triggers 3 violations. An extra pasuk l'chayiv to hold him liable. In this case, where it's one and the same person, but he's chayiv on each label separately. How do you have a case of all 3 wrapped in one person? Mishkachas, you can find it. Rishia, wicked, the son of a wicked. So it runs in the family. So what happens like this? Shabal imay. Let's call him Reuven. He got him out with his mother. Let's call her Tzipora. They had 2 daughters, Rachel and Leah, which are also his sisters now, right? Then he got involved with Rachel. They had a son, let's call him Shimon. What did Shimon do? He followed in his father's improper footsteps. He got involved with Leah, who's wearing all 3 hats. She is his sister because they both were fathered by Reuven. She's Shimon's mother, Rachel's sister, Leah, right? And she's his father, Reuven's sister, because Reuven and Leah were mothered by the same mother, Tzipora, right? And this was produced by the Rasha, the son of the Rasha. Okay, so in conclusion, the question was posed in the marketplace of Imum. What happens if we have 3 Yisurim wrapped into one person? Achoisei, which is Achoisei, Achoisei Imoy. Shall we say 1 person, 1 Chiyuv? Or 3 Yisurim, 3 separate Chiyuvim? So they told him, well, if 5 Gufin to be Machalik, certainly 5 Shemesh. Now the Gemara responds by saying, maybe not. Hence, we have this pasuk for 3 separate liabilities. Tanarabah. Now over to a different case, a standard case. He gets involved with the arayis multiple times within the same he'elim. He'elim means within the same element of forgetfulness. He was unaware. He didn't remember until way later. So all these infractions were covered under the same umbrella of he'elim echad. How many liabilities? How many chatas? Taner Rabbanon. Ba'aleh got involved with her once. B'chazar, and then again ba'aleh. B'chazar ba'aleh. Chayv al kol achas v'achas Rav Eliezer. Rav Eliezer's unique shita, despite being under the same umbrella of he'elim achas, each act is considered separate and distinct with its own chiyuv. V'chachamar, no way. Eino chayv al achas. It's under the same experience of unawareness. It's one chiyuv for all. Now, of course, they would agree to Rabbi Eliezer if that's 5 separate people. But if this one fellow gets involved with 5 women, so despite being under the same haze of unawareness, he's chayav 5, 1 per person. He gets involved with his 5 women, 5 wives who are nida, even though it's in the same experience. Chayav separately. Why? So soon the Gemara will say, well, there's 5 separate people, like we said before. But first the Gemara is going to say, we'll propose another reason. Because he's triggering their liability. So since on their end, on their side of the coin, each one of these women will chayiv separately, since he brought it about, it circles back to him, he's also chayiv 5. So him like them. Is that a reason to hold him accountable for multiple chiyuvim? Do we apply this concept of hoyel bugarim since he caused them? So he sort of shares their fate. Is that correct? Atani, we have another brisa. No, we don't apply this formula. Let's say you have Rachel and Leah. So one ish and one isha. Hu belamechas. So he committed multiple sins, but he did it on his end with one unawareness. On her end, it took place under 5 separate elements of unawareness. She forgot, she realized, right? They're not on the same boat in terms of liability as well. He gets a group rate, she doesn't. He's only chayiv 1 for the full experience. She's chayiv 1 per experience because they happen separately on her end. So you see, they don't share the same page. So why, back to our story, a fellow was involved with 5 nashav, nidois, velamachas. Why is he chayiv twice? Ella, ema, rather we have to say the reason is hoyel v'guvan mechlok, they're separate people, and that divides them. So again, according to the Chachamim, multiple infractions of the same type of isser happening under the same halim triggers 1 chiyuv, unless it's gufan mechlok. According to Eliezer, it's always split into different separate chiyuvim. So we spoke about committing multiple acts of arayos, each one separate and distinct. Eliezer, each one a chatas. What about on Shabbos? He did multiple. He repeated a malacha, repeat over and over. He turned on the light on and off. What happens here? He harvested. He did malacha of kaitzer over and over again. Each one triggers its own chiyuv, despite being under the same helam or not. Iboilu. What happens on Shabbos? Katzar. He cut the fig off the tree, but Katzar did it again, under the same ha'alama. What happens in Rabbi Eliezer? Mali, Amar Rabbi Eliezer. How would Rabbi Eliezer treat this fellow? Separate or united? Time Rabbi Eliezer Hassam, Misham Hudaved Tartin. Is the reason why Arayas, why he's obligating him twice, because he did 2 Isur. We ignore the fact that it was under 1 experience. And therefore, that's why it's chayiv. Al kol achas v'achas. V'chanam yerzol by Shabbos. David Tadni committed 2 malachos, 2 karbanos. Or maybe there's another element that's required to tie them together. They're combinable. They're mixable. The reason why Rabbi Eliezer differentiates between, separate and divide between the 2 elements of arayos. You can't mix the bio experiences with each other. Each one is separate and distinct and treated as a separate infraction. And that's the reason why Amar Rabbi Eliezer chayiv on each one separate. But by malachas of Shabbos, well, technically, he could have snipped both figs with the same swoop. They're combinable. So maybe they're not so distinct, they're not so separate, and you can't hold them accountable separately, 1 per. But let's say you harvested food, the volume of a dried fig, which is the minimum volume for malacha, on food-related malachas on Shabbos. And then he did the same thing again 5 minutes later, under the same unawareness, fine, but separate pickings. Because he came back, because of Geras, ve'elamachas and 1 helam, perhaps we don't separate, we don't divide. Why? Since technically, theoretically, he could have done it in the same time, the same swoop. Perhaps only chayiv 1. So which way is it? Is it because it's a separate ma'aseh, or you need the initial element that it's uncombinable? Amar Rabba, it's a separate ma'aseh. Simply put, the reason why by Arayis he's chayiv 2 because he did 2 isurim. Hachanami Yerzol by Shabbos, 2 malaches, 2 korbanos. Despite the fact that it's combinable, that's not a factor at play. Rabbi Yosef Amar says no. The uncombinable factor is a prerequisite for separating the experiences and generating separate chiyuvim. Rabbi Yosef Amar. Time the Rabbi Eliezer, the reason why Rabbi Eliezer holds him accountable for a double chatas by Arayis, the can't combine the experiences. They're inherently separate. Hence, separate triggers. But if you can technically combine the two, like doing one big harvest on Shabbos, he's only chayav once. Abai is a kasha to Rabbi who says two malachos, two chatois, even if you can combine them. Listen to this brayso. Rabbi Lezer mechayev avlade malachos makom avis malachos. Here comes a new point of Rabbi Lezer, totally new point. Typically, we know that on Shabbos we have the primary forms of work, and each one has sort of its family, has derivatives as well. If a person commits an av with a telada, the same experience, only chayiv one because it's sort of enveloped, it's one package deal. Rabbi Lezer says no, a telada is distinct from its av. So that's first of all. A person did an av and a telada in the same experience, and when we say the same experience, by the way, we mean the same halama throughout this whole daf. That's what we're referring to. Same halama, the same experience, the same element of unawareness. He didn't remember in between. Okay, so he did an av and a tolda in the same halam. Says Rabbi Lezer, he's chayiv twice. One for the av, one for the telada. Because we treat them like separate experiences. Now let's make a diuk. Let's infer from here. But let's say av, he did an av. Ve'av and another av, vasachas. Together, meaning, again, the same experience. Pater di pater. So what does that tell us? Evidently, according to Rabbi Lezer, two malachas on Shabbos, since they're combinable, you don't treat them separate. Ve'amris, taima. To Rabbi Lezer, mishum dekava tarti. According to you, Rabbi, when you do two things, when you commit two arayos, two malachas, you chayiv separately, one per. So in this case, where he snipped one fig and another one, am I part of why is he getting away with just one? Omamar, Brei the Ravana. Let me explain to you. No, let me explain to you. Myself, Rabbi Nachum Bar Zachariah, you both had a good explanation. Our Gimna, we explained the brayso like this. You see, you're assuming that he committed two separate, distinct, snips. No, it was one swoop, it was one cut. Of course, if it's separate cut, he's chayiv too, no question. Rather, Chacham Skin was speaking about a unique case, bedalus. You have a vine, hamudlus al gavetena, which is hanging over the fig tree. And there's a plum fig right there. He takes his little knife, and he does a snip, one snip, and cuts through the fig. So he detaches the fig and also prunes the vine, a clipping off a branch, which is a teilada, derivative of the malach of kaitzer. So he did the av, the actual harvest, which is a malachos av, and the pruning of the branch right next to it in one swoop, which is a teilada. Bedolos hamudis lagabetein v'katz, and he snipped them both vasachas in one swoop. So it's one act, not two. Oh, it's a different story. Mishum hachi. Mechayiv Rabbi Lezer. That's why Rabbi Lezer says you chayiv two in this case only. Because they're two separate names. This is Av, this is Telad, and they're two separate entities. This is one tree, this is the other. But imagine if there are two figs side by side and he does one swoop on both. Of course he's chayiv only one for both. The Gavasah likewise, in a corresponding case, Katzar v'katzar, snip snip, harvest. How is it possible? He's going to be getting away with just one chiyuv. So he harvested two figs in one swoop. Of course he's chayiv. Only one. Rabbi Lezer would agree in this case. Aval kotzer kagurgeres. V'chaza v'kotzer kagurgeres chayiv. Why does Rabbi Lezer hold him accountable for two when he did it in separate motion, separate Maisen? He harvested an amount of kuggeres and came back again for kuggeres. Of course, he's chayiv twice, in line with Rabbah. Two separate acts, two separate Maisen. Even if they're technically combinable. The fact that he did it separately, he's chayiv too. Okay, so bottom line, the consensus, the Chacham hold, that multiple arayos, multiple malachis, it's under the same ha'alama, it's one for all. With Rabbi Lezer, each one gets its own chiyuv. So by arayos, there's no question. Each experience gets its own chiyuv. But by malachas and Shabbos, Once again, Rabbah says, yep, separate in all situations. According to Rav Yosef, only if it's uncombinable. But if there's technically a way to combine these two things, then they're not separate and distinct. Even Rabbi Eliezer would agree it's only one chiyuv. Continues the Mishnah. The next question in the marketplace. Furthermore, Rabbi Akiva posed him another question while they were standing online there. This relates to Taharis. You have an aver, a limb, hamaduldo. So you have a flabby skin dangling off the animal, behemoth. Ma, what's its status? Is it considered tamei, like aver menachai? Or is it still attached to its source of life and it's not tamei? Amalei says, we're not sure. We do know the following. By a human, it's tar. And if it's tar by a human, despite the fact that he has a much broader susceptibility to tumah, a person becomes tamei during his lifetime, certainly by behemoth, which is immune to tumah during its lifetime, you would assume the same status applies there, and the flab is tar. We know a similar flabby skin by a person is tar. In fact, this was commonplace in Yerushalayim. Mukei shchin, the fellow with the skin conditions, who had these dangling, oisim Yerushalayim, they would do the following in Yerushalayim in advance of the Yom Tov of Pesach to clean themselves up in honor of Yom Tov. Oisim Yerushalayim, hoyochle erev Pesach, I celebrate. He would approach the doctor, skin doctor, erev Pesach, to clean him up. The doctor would take out a scalpel and would detach, but not all the way. He would leave just a hair-thin strand to keep it alive, to keep it connected to the body, so that it's not tamei yet. But once it detaches, it's Ever Menachai, it's tamei, and would contaminate the doctor, would invalidate him from becoming Pesach, right? Nobody wants to risk that. So you'd cut almost to the bottom, and the patient would take care of the rest. He would do a self-help surgery. And there would be this peg, this sharp, this thorn sticking out of the wall, and the fellow would approach stick the peg into the dangling thing, and he would yank it out, and he would detach. He would pull away, and it would detach, and everybody was safe and sound. And the patient would go do his Karban Pesach because he never touched it once it was detached, and the Reife would be happy to do his Karban Pesach. Bottom line, we see that while still dangling, it's tar. By an Adam. We assume that if it works by a person, certainly by a behemoth, it would be tar as well. Non-Hassam. Okay, speaking about detachments, we move on to a Mishnah, Masechas Machshir. So this Mishnah will discuss the halacha of hechsher l'kabel tumah, water which comes into contact with food. That food is now, let's say a piece of fruit which became wet, that fruit is now susceptible to future tumah. So coming into contact with water opens the door for future tumah to attack, so to speak, to affect that piece of food, on condition that water is something which he's pleased with. But if it's, let's say he was out in the rain and his beged is saturated with water, he's not pleased with the presence of that water in his beged. So at that point, it has no legal water standing, so to speak. But if he squeezes it out of the beged, let's say a person is squeezing the water-laden vegetable, the kreisi, or he was outside in the rain and his hair is saturated with water and he's squeezing it out, or he's squeezing his garment out of its water. Now, the water that's still embedded inside, he has no use for. That's an expression, it's a term based on the pasuk, meaning if that water should now land on a food, it does not have the effect of hechsher, because that water is not something which he's pleased with. There's no use for it. Has no chashivos, has no value. But vayetzin menu, once the water emerges, so the water that he actually squeezes out, that emerges from the vegetable or the garment, he's pleased about its departure. That gives its value, gives it chashivos. Hareim b'chiyutan. So now that water can be machsher food l'kabel tumah. Amar Shmuel, ukreisha atzmo chshura as well. Once the water leaving has status, likewise, it circles back, so to speak, and the vegetable, which ejected that water, also becomes huchshar. Why? My time b'shas prishasim, because as it's departing from the mother vegetable, huchshra, it came into contact as it was departing. So the moment of departure, it's still connected. It's still touching. So it sort of happens simultaneously. It achieves liquid status while it's still sort of leaving and in contact with it. Ask the Gemara. Look at our Mishnah, where he detaches from this dangling skin, and we don't consider the fellow tamei as though he touched a detached piece of skin, because no, once it was detached, he was no longer in contact with it. We don't view the moment of detachment as a moment of, on the one hand, detachment and contact at the same time. We don't say that. It's not. Look at our Mishnah. Erev Pesach, he goes to the doctor, and everybody's free and clean. If by the water we say, as it's departing, as it's leaving, it's still in contact and it makes the food huchshar, so what about the aver in the Mishnah? As it's leaving the person, as detaching, that moment, it should be metame the person, because he touched something which is detached, which is metame. Says the Gemara, actually, the Mishnah is speaking that he detached full force. Just as Rav Yosef tells us later, regarding another matter. That depends. If it was nitazim chol koychan, it was being squirted out, detached, full force, then we don't say attached during a moment of detachment, because it's sort of so strong, heading the other direction, doesn't relate to the mother item anymore. Here as well, we can say nitazim chol koychan, that in terms of the dangling skin, it was detached full force, in which case it affects a full, complete, totally detachment, and we don't deem it as though it's touching while detaching. What do we find in Rav Yosef's concept? On the following halacha. A similar halacha, it's a tesefta regarding a zav, b'tmei meis. A fellow is either a zav or b'tmei meis, she'em halchen. They're walking down the road and it's pouring. They're hit by a rainstorm. Even though they're squeezing the rainwater out of their garment, right? Mitzad elyon, mitzad tachton. So while it's still in the garment, it just sort of relocated from top to the bottom, but it's still in the beged torah. That water is completely torah. It's not deemed water because it's still inside. He has no use for it. Their intent is that it should leave the beged. While it's still inside, it's not really. But until it leaves the beged completely, but in fact, when it leaves, it trickles out of the beged, it can be machshir. So if it now lands on a banana, this dripping rainwater squeezed out of the beged has water status, that can be machshir. And the question is, why is it only machshir? There's a girsa actually which says utahir, the banana is tar. Why is it tar? Look, where did this water come from? It came from a tamei beged that was worn by a zav. And as it was departing the beged and achieved mashka status through departing, it was still in contact. If we say that moment of departure and contact are one and the same, Rav Yosef, to which Rav Yosef answers, yes, typically you would consider it still in touch with its source. Not so if it's coming out by force, it's being detached full force from the beged. And that's why it's totally separate and independent, and it achieves a status. By the time it does that, it's already detached from the beged, because Netazna was squirted out. Okay, so to sum up this discussion, we have the Aver Hamed Duldol, dangling off a person. It's considered Torah while still attached. Once detached, it's tummy. What about the moment of detachment? The Gemara concluded, it depends. If it's going slow, then it will circle back to the person. But if it's being detached full force, everybody's safe and sound. Now the question that Rav Kiva had posed, the Chacham back in the marketplace, was what about the aver of a behema? And the answer was, well, if it's torn by a person while still attached, likewise, certainly by the behema. Next Mishnah, V'oid Shalom, Rabbi Kiva. Here comes another question. He had posed with Rabbi Kiva back in the marketplace. He says, Hashoichet heizvochem b'chutz, belamacha. So we shift to kachim. We went from nashim to Haris, not to kachim. So a fellow takes a zevach, a carbon, which is meant to be shechted in the base medrash, and does it outside, which is a violation, a transgression of shchutei chutz. Hashoichet heizvochem. Now he does 5 of those b'chutz, belamachas, covered under the same heling. Mao. What is the status? Is he chayav 5 karbanos, or just 1? Because it's 1 iser and 1 helam. Ma chayav al kol achas v'achas, is chayav 1 per, or yachas al kol, or 1 for the all. Amar loy shaman. He said we haven't heard this from our teachers. Amar Yeshua, he says actually shamanti. I did hear about the following halacha, which we can make use as a comparison. You're going to compare it to the halacha of me'ilah. Person partakes improperly, eats from a carbon before the carbon was processed. That's considered a me'ilah transgression. And he ate, they ate from 1 carbon, but from 5 pots. So there were 5 recipes, 5 different containers, different recipes, different pots. So they were prepared differently, which is very similar to the 5 zvachim. That's sort of 5 entities, 5 presentation. Bela machas under the same malan. And I was told, he's chayiv for each one independently. Mishamila. And I figured, shadram kavachaymer. If in this case they're separate, certainly in the case of 5 separate zvachim, they're shechted outside. So he's comparing shchita of kachim b'chutz to achila of me'ilah. Amar b'shimon, no, it's not a fair comparison. Eating is different. You enjoy each one, each recipe distinctly and separately. So of course there we separate. Not so by the shchita of the karbonis. In fact, this wasn't the question that he asked him, Rabbi Kiva. Ella, rather, it was an eating question. Hence, the response with an eating resolution. He ate noiser mechamisha zvachim from 5 different karbanos, belam achas, in the same helam. What happens? Chayev achas al kulam. Does 1 chatas cover it all? Because it's 1 helam and 1 isser. Or chayev al kol achas v'achas. Each one gets its own chatas. Amar loy, to which they responded, loy shemana, we don't know. Amar b'shor shamati, I did hear regarding eating me'ilah. And he ate from 1 carbon prematurely in violation of me'ilah. 5 different types of meat, 5 different recipes. In the same halam, al kol achas achas mishme'ilah. There's 7 me'ilah per dish. And I figure certainly, in your case, we ate noiser from 5 separate karbanos. Shadam kavachayma, of course, in your case, is separate. Look, in halacha, if you're telling me a halacha, an established halacha, fine. The Kabbalah will accept it. Will submit. Imla din, but if you're just theorizing on your own, I could challenge you. Kavachayim yesh teshuva. Omar he says, okay, present. Hashev. Omar, he says, look, you're seeking to make a comparison between a fellow who ate noisar to a fellow who ate in a me'ilah context. Me'ilah runs a different track. We're going to see about Hashem coming up soon. Mesechas me'ilah is all Masechta. Me'ilah has its own unique stringencies, which perhaps don't allow for a fair comparison to noisar. For example, how could you compare it to me'ilah? Typically, when a person causes another person to stumble, to do an isser, the perpetrator, he did lifnei iver, but he's not liable for that isser that the other fellow did. But by me'ilah, it's not so. If you feed somebody me'ilah material, you are obligated. And the one who provided the hana from the kachim, he is responsible as though he was on the receiving side. Likewise, tzirav as a milah zman meruba. The milah experience, which entails having a hana of at least a pruta value, can be stretched out for a very long time. Talmud Bavli, as opposed to eating nicer, which doesn't have these chumrah elements, shein bo yachas meila, doesn't have all these elements of chumrah, so perhaps you can compare the two. Yes, meila is separate dishes, separate liabilities, but by noisar, who says? Even if it's separate karbanis, maybe since it's one isser under the one element, it's chayv only one. Okay, so in the Mishnah we have two versions of the question. According to the first version, he posed about shchita of 5 karbanis, and the answer was, well, I'll prove to you from the fellow who ate 5 dishes regarding meila. Reb Shimon says, no, that wasn't the question. Why not? My kashile, Reb Shimon. What issue did he have with that first version? He had the following issue. How could you compare? He's asking about shchita, and you're responding with meila. Responding with a fellow who ate. Ma rayit l'shechet moich. How could you bring a rayit from eating to shchita? Ma lo'echel shken. Of course, by eichel is chayv separately per dish. He enjoyed each one differently than the other one. He has a no, it's different, it's separate. But shchita, it doesn't. It's an act of shchita, so maybe you can all just combine them into one liability. That's why he modified the version. Elakach shalom. Rather, he asked as follows. He asked about eating, and he responded with a halacha related to eating. That's a fair equation. Elakach shalom. He ate noiser from 5 separate karbanis in one helem. Mao. Do we divide it because it's 5 karbanis? Or one covers it all because it's one iser with one helem. Amar loy, Shemana, we're not sure. Amar Bishua, Shemati, I know about eating meila. Person ate from one carbon, which he shouldn't have, it was before this rika. Different dishes, different forms of recipe. Ve'ela machas is chayv 1 chatas per. Shechayv akalas v'achas mishamila. I figured shatam kavachaymer. You can prove your case from a kavachaymer. What is the kavachaymer? This wasn't expressed in the Mishnah, but it expresses it here. Mam is evach echad shen gufet muchlaka. Chayv akalas v'achas mishum tamchuin muchlaka. If we find it by milah, we hold them accountable separately, 1 per pot, despite being from the same carbon. So we see that the tamchuyin are machalik. Certainly in your case, where in fact it was 5 separate karbanis, chamisha zvachim, which are separate entities, the gufan muchlakin, certainly the kolshkan, of course, is chayiv separately 1 per piece of nicer. And we skip down to the 2 dots to Amr le Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so let's just conclude. Rabbi Akiva had the shaila in the first version, shechting 5 karbanis outside, and responded from noiser coming out of 5 pots. In the second version, it was a question of and the response was meila coming out of 5 pots. Just like there it's separate, here it's separate as well. Going to the next version, the question was, he ate noisar from 5 karbanis. Are they separate? Or are they united? And the answer was, if we find by meila 5 dishes trigger 5 liabilities, certainly if it's 5 noisars from 5 karbanis. Rabbi Akiva wasn't happy. He says, no, we can challenge this equation, this comparison to meila. So according to Rabbi Akiva, if it's 5 noisar from 5 karbanis, or 5 forms of preparation, 5 dishes, it's still one and the same liability. Unless it's 5 haleimos, right? 5 different experiences of unawareness. But otherwise, we bind it together, we combine it into one liability. So he responded as such to Rabbi Shua. And the question was, did Rabbi Shua agree with him? What's Rabbi Shua's position today? In order to divide of 5 separate karbanis, or 5 separate tamchuyin, enough of a dividing factor or not? Did Rabbi Shua accept this response and agreed with him that the only way to divide is to have 5 ha'alamis, but anything else doesn't cut it? Or perhaps he didn't accept it, and he still held his ground. 5 karbanos or 5 tamchuyin are enough of a reason to divide. Toshma, it comes right from our Bryce, the Sanya. So we have several parts to this Bryce. Bryce begins, Ochel heichatichas noiser, mezavech echad, velamachas, b'chamishet tamchuyin. 5 portions of noiser from the same carbon, but each one prepared different than the other, different recipes, different flavors, different tastes. Einoi, maybe, elachatas achas. So it's just one chatas. Va'al, lo yoida shalahen. Einoi, maybe, asham tali echad. Likewise, if he's not sure, there's a suffix, lo yoida, he brings one asham tali. So asham tali works the same system as the chatas. So again, despite the fact that it's 5 tamchuyin, it's not enough of a dividing factor. Sounds like Rabbi Kiva speaking. One chatas and only asham tali echad. What if it's 5 ha'alamis? Yeah, in that case, it's divided, of course. 5 experiences. Distinct and separate, according to all shittas. Maybe chatas aklachas va'achas, 1 chatas per. Well, lo yidashlen, it's an uncertainty. It's 5 asham talis, maybe asham tali for each portion, aklachas va'achas for each ha'alam. Okay, so according to this section of the Brisa, it's reflective of Rabbi Kiva's shita. And that what? The only way to divide is to have separate halamis. But otherwise, you don't divide it. Separate karbanos doesn't divide. Separate tamchuyin doesn't divide. Now comes another piece of the Brisa, which seems to say otherwise. 5 different karbanos, it's divided. Mehei zvachim elamachas, 1 element, 5 zvachim, chayv al klachas vachas. We seem to have a contradiction. We'll deal with it. We'll see later. Rabbi Yisrael Daimer, afilu achal hechatichas meizvachem belamachas. He says, yeah, even if it's 5 different pieces from 5 different karbanos, belamachas, einoi mevil chatas achas. You only bring 1 carbon, chatas, and if it's an unknown, 1 asham tali. Val sveikun ein mevil asham tali echad. Why? Because it goes hand in hand. Kol shel davar. That's the rule. Kol shel chalukim chatois, a situation which branches into several chatois. Likewise, branches into several ashamais. If it's an unknown, chalukim ashamais, and vice versa. If it's tied together regarding chatos, likewise regarding asham. So this is clearly like the Rabbi Kiva in the Mishnah. You don't divide if it's within the same helim. Now let's go back to the Tanakam. We'll continue the Bryce. Now we go to Me'ilah. He ate the carbon too early before this Rika. 5 pieces from 1 carbon, but each one prepared different than the other. Even in the same helim, chayav al kol achas v'achas Me'ilah. So regarding Me'ilah, certainly we treat them separate and distinct, as we had in the Mishnah. End quote. Now let's make it interesting deal. I turn to the next slide. V'ilu al sveiken maybe asham tali like tani. You see, interesting, at the end of the Brisa, when we spoke about Me'ilah, it only mentioned the chatas option. What if it's uncertain? What if it's a suffix? What happened to asham tali? We mentioned asham tali before, by noisa, right? The answer is, because there's a big controversy. Is there an asham tali option by Me'ilah? Apparently the Brisa holds no. So the Brisa cannot be expressing Rabbi Kiva's opinion, who holds there is an asham tali option by Me'ilah. Mani, who's speaking in this Brisa? Who's the Tanakama who began and concluded the Brisa? Mani ho, ilim Rabbi Kiva. Is it Rabbi Kiva? That's not going to work, because listening nami seifa. In that case, the Brisa would also conclude with a reference to asham tali by Me'ilah. Maybe asham tali. Atnam, we have a Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva machayev. He obligates al savak Me'ilah at asham tali. So it can't be him speaking. El lav, it must be Rabbi Shoi. Must be Rabbi Shua speaking. Holds there is no asham tali Me'ilah, option by Me'ilah. So once we established, we gave a name to the face. It's Rabbi Shua speaking. Let's go back and reanalyze the Brisa from the beginning. The Brisa spoke about dividing the liabilities. Maybe chatois. So we had the first part of the brayso. If it's 1 helam, 1 chatos. 5 halamis, 5 chatois. Irrespective of whether it's cooked and prepared separately, and presumably irrespective if it's from separate animals. That's not a dividing factor. Uktani behez halamis, maybe behez chatois. So what does that tell us about Rabbi Shua responding to Rabbi Kiva? He conceded to him. Ushmamano kibum, and he accepted Rabbi Kiva's challenge. 5 karbanis or 5 tamchuin are not dividing factors. Ask the Gemara. But that's not going to fit with the next part of that brayso, where it said that 5 karbanis are going to divide it. 5 animals, even if it's 1 helam, it's 5 separate chiyuvim. And apparently he did not agree with Rabbi Kiva. And he stood firm that 5 zvachim is a dividing factor. So how does this work? You got to say like this. Tanoi, that there were 2 opinions. Either Rabbi Shua did accept or did not accept. And they're both expressed in this price. Dikatana de kibla, according to the first shita, expressed in the beginning of the brayso, he was makabel. And he agreed that 5 tamchuyin or 5 karbanis are not dividing factor. Vikatana like kibla. There was another tana, another version, that in fact he did not accept it. And he stood firm that 5 karbanis deserve 5 separate chatois. Says him, okay, well then you can say like this, Afil Tim Rabbi Kiva. Instead of saying you have 2 versions of Rabbi Shua, maybe the beginning of the brayso, in fact, is Rabbi Kiva himself speaking, and then it moves on to Rabbi Shua. So Rabbi Kiva holds 5 tamchuin, that's not going to be machalik. But what happened to the conclusion of the brayso, where we see that there's no Hashem Tali option by Me'ilah? It's not Rabbi Kiva. Well, it's not actually Rabbi Kiva speaking. It's another Tana who adopted some elements of Rabbi Kiva, only regarding the first question, not regarding the Me'ilah question. This Tana, on the one hand, there was Rabbi Kiva. You don't divide liabilities based on the way something's prepared or which animals it's coming from. Only ha'alamas can be mechalik and nothing else. Regarding the other matter discussed at the end of the brayso, he disagreed with him. He holds that there is no Hashem Tali option by Mila. And the Gemara recaps, regarding the Alama question, he holds like him, meaning the only way to divide and generate multiple liabilities if it's separate experiences, separate forgetfulnesses, but otherwise it's all one and the same, covered under the same carbon. Regarding the question of Hashem Tali Bamila, he disagrees, and he holds there's no Hashem Tali Bamila. So in conclusion, what happened here? So we have a Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva posed a question to the Chacham in the marketplace. He did shchita on 5 karbanis with 1 helam. 5 chiyuvim or 1 chiyuv. Rabbi Shua says, well, we have 5 achilos of Me'ilah, from 5 dishes, 5 tamchuyin, separate chiyuvim, certainly in this case. Rabbi Shimon didn't hold to this comparison because eating is different, eating is a separate experience rather, the question was actually eating as well. He asked him 5 portions of nois are coming from 5 different animals, 5 different karbanis, 5 chiyuvim or 1. And he responded with the established halacha by Me'ilah, 5 tamchuyin as 5 liabilities, and certainly in this case as well, coming from 5 karbanis. Rabbi Kiva challenged this comparison. He says Me'ilah is different, runs a different track, and the question was, did Rabbi Shua accept it or not? We thought we had a raya, but it turns out we don't. We have a brayso, which perhaps reflects Rabbi Kiva's shita, then over to Rabbi Shua, then back to her. So we don't really have clarity on this question. But now, just one more point. What do you mean 5 tamchuyin? Prepared differently, different flavors, different taste. How distinct do they have to be to be considered totally separate and trigger 5 separate liabilities? Hey, they change it to tamchuyin. We have several approaches of how drastically different they have to be. Amar Shmuel, Shaninu. Similar to what we find in the discussion regarding a fellow who took a portion of the oila offering. Now, oila offering is comprised of the actual animal and also the mincha that comes along with it, the flour, the wine. He takes a kazayis of oila material comprised, can be comprised of many, many different elements of the oila. Chamisha dvarim ba'oila mitzdarfen. Here the kazayis is comprised of various elements of the oila. They combine together, and he's chayav for doing it outside. Habasar, v'achelev, v'ayayin, v'aselis v'ashemen, right? See, any of these are all together. He's chayav for doing it outside. The meat, the chelev, the wine, flour, oil. So if a fellow ate a bit of each, they're considered separate and distinct. They're different materials, different flavors, different experiences. A fellow ate, even within the behema you find different elements. He ate a kazayis of each from different limbs, different parts, which have different distinct flavors. Right? Each aver has its own distinct flavor, so it's a separate liability. Even 5 cuts of the same limb could be treated differently. For instance, by the shoulder area, Rashi says it's comprised of several parts. Each part has its own uniqueness. He ate the 5 pieces of meat, which were just cooked differently. One with onions, one with the garlic, so it could be the same animal, the same limb, the same cut of meat, but prepared differently. They were prepared entirely different. One was, Rashi said, tzali, one was roasted, mavusha, one was cooked, kavash, one was pickled, the shalak, one was heavily cooked with keder, one was dry cooked without water and its own, So cooked and roasted differently, that's sufficient to treat them separate and distinct, hence the 5 separate liabilities. Okay, let's do a quick chazar of today's daf. We started with the chamoisai that has various other labels as well. He's chayav for all of them. What about chamoisai, which happens to be eim chamev and eim chamoisai, which are all learned from the same pasuk? There's a machlekes there. We more sought to compare it to sumchas ba'isay esbenai. We found some distinctions. Rabbi Kiva's questions to the chacham in the marketplace were started with getting involved with one person that has 3 shemois, achoisai, which is achoisai aviv, and achoisai imoi, and they responded, of course, to their separate liabilities, either based on the fact that by 5 nidais there are separate liabilities here as well, or based on the pasuk which teaches us that in fact achoisai, achoisai, and achoisai are treated as 3 separate distinct liabilities. Whatever a person does an avera repeatedly under the same ha'alama, same avera, according to Chacham, it's one chiyuv, according to Rabbi Elazar, each one gets its own chiyuv. And the question was, well, we know that it applies by arayas. What about by malachas and Shabbos, which can be combined? That was machlekes in Rabbah, who says they're separate chiyuvim. Rabbi Yosef says if they could be combined, theoretically they can be done together the same. Even Rabbi Elazar would agree, regroup it as one, and it's one chiyuv. Next question was the dangling skin, a behema or adam, it's tar while still attached. Next point was the shchita on the hizvachim, brought right from Me'ilah, that's separate, or eating noisa from 5 different zvachim, and he answered from Me'ilah that heitam chuyin amachalik, and we discussed exactly how to define 5 forms of preparation. All the best to you, and atzlach.